So today I want to talk about VLANs and trunks. So let's talk about some terms before we dive into the configuration and troubleshooting. So first is, what is VLAN? VLAN stands for virtual LAN. So basically, the switch has a default VLAN, which is VLAN 1, and all the existing ports belong to the default VLAN. And also, VLAN equals to a single broadcast domain and to a subnet, and actually also one instance of spanning tree, and also equals to one MAC address table. So that is VLAN. And you can actually create more than one VLAN on a single switch. So you can create up to, I think, 4094 VLANs. Yeah. And like I said, broadcast domain, this is the broadcast domain where a broadcast frame can be seen, like in a single VLAN. That's, like I said earlier, that's a single broadcast domain. And let's talk about trunk link or trunk port. So if you have a let's talk about let's actually talk about a single port or an access port. So if you have a PC connected to a switch, that port is called an access port, and it only carries one VLAN. But trunk port or trunk link carries traffic for multiple VLANs. So if you have two switches connected to each other, then you should configure that port between the switches to be a trunk link or trunk port. And we have two trunking protocols. Number one is ISL, inter-switch link. This is a Cisco proprietary protocol, but Cisco does not recommend that we use this anymore. I think they're kind of phasing this out. And number two is 802.1q. This is what Cisco recommends that we use now. This is a industry standard. So the difference between the two is that ISL adds, I think, 30 bytes of tag, but with .1q, it only adds 4 bytes to the frame. And of course, you can use this with other vendors or manufacturers. That's why it's industry standard. And let's talk about DTP. DTP stands for Dynamic Trunking Protocol. This is a Cisco proprietary protocol. So basically, this is to negotiate for example, if you have two switches and you have a port connected between them, then you can actually dynamically negotiate the switches to have a trunk port. This is actually the if you have this UTP configured, then you have to choose between dynamic desirable and dynamic auto. But we're going to talk about that later. So like I said, this is to negotiate the port on both ends of the switches to become a trunk. And native VLAN, this is by default switches have their a switch has its VLAN 1 as its native VLAN. But it is recommended that you configure another VLAN, not the default VLAN, to be your native VLAN. So basically, this is the frames that traverse the port. This is for the frames that are untagged that traverse the port or the trunk. So voice VLAN is, of course, the VLAN for the voice traffic. So this is how you create a VLAN. So you go into the configuration mode and you just type in VLAN and the number. And for simplicity, or for you to determine the VLAN you should name it. And in this example, we name it sales. And this is how you assign a port to a VLAN. So the command is switch port access in the VLAN. In this case, VLAN 2. And of course, this port should be an access port, not a trunk port, because it only carries a single VLAN, in this case, VLAN 2. And this is how you configure a trunk port. So you define the encapsulation first. Like I mentioned earlier, we have two trunking protocols, and ISL and the 1Q. So and like I said earlier, Cisco recommends that we use that 1Q. So switch port, trunk, encapsulation, and then you choose the 1Q or ISL or negotiate. If you choose negotiate and you have two Cisco, and you have two Cisco devices or switches, then they're gonna prefer ISL because it's Cisco. It's a Cisco protocol. And this is how you specify the native VLAN to be another VLAN, not the default VLAN, which is VLAN 1. So in this case, this is how we configure it 99. And this is what I mentioned earlier, that you can actually make your port to dynamically negotiate or to send data frames, or just to wait for data frames, or just to make it, you know, a trunk, or just make it, you know, not negotiate it, but just turn it on. So you have to type in trunk. This is the recommended option for settings, switch port mode. And let's talk about some troubleshooting commands. This is what you use to see if the VLAN is active and if it has ports that belong to it. And this is also a very useful command to see if your port is either an access port or a trunk port, and you can also see other things there. And last one is show span and tree interface. This is very useful if you want to check that your voice VLAN is active and it's, you know, forwarding or traversing a port. So yeah, I think that's it for now. I'm gonna talk about VTP on the next video. So yep, thanks.